Well, hi, Amber. I'm so excited to be talking to you today. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you. I'm excited as well.
Our theme for this month for Second Mothers is all about hope. And so I've been excitedly waiting to interview you about your fabulous book because it fits with our theme today for finding hope. And I have been so inspired by your story, being a former foster youth, a foster mom, and the many things you do now in your career that I hope you'll have a few minutes to share about to help others find hope. So, can you start off just in a few sentences telling us a little bit about your story and who you are?
For me, I'm in the state of Kansas, so right there in the central state, but I've interacted with a lot of others. And I grew up in the child welfare system in and out of my father's home. So I was a little abnormal and grew up in a father's home all the way till the age of 12, and I was removed 11 different times. I was one of those type of kids that was struggling with my behaviors a lot. So externally, I was a challenging kid, but internally, I just was very lost and needed some nurture and support. I did find it through church. Actually, growing up, I went to church for food. I didn't remember a lick of what they talked about at church, but I went there
Wow.
for the food, and that was very powerful. And when I was 12 years old, I was in a family that had five marriages. He was on his fifth marriage. I was the youngest of six children. And I went into foster care for the final time. And mine was substantiated for emotional abuse and neglect. There was physical abuse when I was younger, but that emotional isolation, deprived of food, nutrition, things like that was how my case was. So I went into foster care, moved between some different homes. Cool thing of my story, though, when I was 15, I was required to go to church at the foster home I was in. I was in my fifth foster home, and that was a rule. And I actually met what I call my family now when I was 15. We never did legal adoption or anything, but I joined them by meeting my Sunday school teacher. And so I joined a
Oh,
family of four already, added me as number five, went back to my hometown, faced some things of my past, and got to join the family.
wow.
Something I talk about in my book as we go there, and I'll let you transition on that, is I talk about how life doesn't end though at 18 like we think it should. I should be done with my
Right,
story at 18, right?
right.
It's just an important part of us is our childhood, but it doesn't end there. And so the opportunity to become the social worker that you were talking about, working in child welfare for a long time, and then learning about my story and learning how the things that we've experienced as children don't leave us when we're 18. I had brain surgery when I was 20 years old
My
from
goodness.
childhood trauma when I was 4 years old. And I was 20 and relearned to walk, talk,
Oh my
relearned
goodness,
to
Amber.
speak. It's challenging, but and it doesn't leave you. We work through it. And it's because of those things that we do hold hope, that we can find hope of the challenges we've faced and overcame. So,
Gosh. Just so people watching understand, you were removed from your father's home 11 times?
correct. I didn't know that until I was an adult and going back and understanding the system because I worked in the system. I worked in child welfare for a long time. And I left child welfare because I felt like I hadn't helped myself heal enough to really give the best services to those I worked with. And so
Wow.
I got my records from the police department when I was 30 years old and was able to figure out all the times that it had been investigated and that I had been placed out of the home. Mhm.
My goodness, Amber, what a wise and healed woman you truly are. There's a story you tell in the book about how you finally used your voice to move from um, going in and out of your father's home to what became permanency for you. And I told you I wanted you to share about this, and maybe this would be a good time because I was so gripped by that story when I think of uh, many children who do, unfortunately, suffer additionally because our foster care system works so hard to reunite children with their biological parents. But sometimes that's where the ongoing trauma occurs. And you tell a story about how you reached a point where you finally had to use your voice to speak for what you wanted. Can you just tell about how old you were and what happened with that?
Yeah, when I was 12 years old, they had originally looked at reintegration or sending me back to my dad's, which would have been the 12th time. And they were doing that, I do believe, with good intentions and how the laws are written and with the limited knowledge that they had. But
Right.
being able to have the voice that I had as I talk about standing up at that case plan and
Mm.
saying, I am not going back to that home. There was a couple things that happened in that moment I didn't realize, but it allowed me to have voice, which allows us who were victims of trauma to
Mm.
become what we then call survivors. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm not going to decide
Oh,
to what I've been through making decisions for me. I'm going to have a voice with what I've been through. So I became a survivor instead of just a victim. And the
wow.
second thing is, it actually was confirmed when my dad said, we don't want her back. And I don't know if that was a defense or a genuine, but I don't think anybody felt that was going to be in the best interest of anybody. And they just felt like they had to go with the rules. Well, sometimes the rules aren't the right thing, and we have to have a voice for that. That's what taught me that. And I remember it now because it changed the trajectory of my life.
My goodness. All I can think with you telling that story is at 12, you were already the incredible, resilient, courageous woman that you are now. That's just, it's just
I love
amazing.
how you say that because I say this throughout my book. What you just said, I did not see,
Hmm.
but people saw it and they said it repetitively, time and time again, in different situations, and different people told me that. And it was because of that that I came to believe I could be that. I
Right.
didn't see it, but people saw it in me.
People speaking that over you is what led you to believe it about yourself and finding your voice to speak up for yourself and be a survivor. And
Yes.
now your whole life is about bringing hope. Um, you have it on the wall behind you. You're at your office now, but okay, great.
Yes.
I love how you begin the book by saying, um, life is difficult because one of the things I think we forget that I'm constantly reminding myself as a believer and a Christ follower is that no one promised us an easy life. And I think when we start feeling sorry for ourselves or feeling hopeless, it's because we are forgetting the life that we've been called to. And I know your book is for anyone, whether they follow Jesus or not, but particularly those of us who are second mothers, who have followed this call to walk into broken stories. We're not promised, as followers of Christ, an easy road. Certainly, Jesus didn't have an easy road. And again, I see so much wisdom in you beginning the book that way because you're reminding us what is our true call, that life isn't necessarily meant to be easy, but that we are resilient. And you're so good at that message. Can you talk a little bit about this idea of resilience? It's kind of a new term that a lot of people are using now to talk about children who come out of trauma because so many do, but we see some children are so resilient. Can you unpack that word for us a little bit?
Yeah, when you say resilient, that's the ability to bounce back. I am a clinician now and a therapist. And so when I think about this and in the book and in my story, there's two parts to that. One is simply acknowledging, and it's really the first step, acknowledging that something is challenging. So that's my first chapter is life is tough. And biblically, he never says it's going to be easy. That's just a perception that we can get lost in and really lets us or causes us to lose sight of
Mm,
our strengths in things. So accepting that life is tough, because that's a mindset we have to have, and just an acknowledgement. The second chapter is tough is tolerable. Now,
mhm,
I do say in there carefully that tolerable doesn't mean it's necessarily enjoyable, doesn't mean it's something we desire to have experience with again, but it does mean we have the capacity to manage it and make something out of maybe seemingly nothing. That
mhm.
is resilience in simplicity. That's doing that. And also in faith, in what God promises us, that I'm not promising you easy, simple times, but I am promising you the ability and the support to manage the trials you face. And that's
Yeah.
what that is saying.
As a former foster youth, as a foster mom, as a clinician, some of us in our family see children who appear very resilient, and then some kids who really struggle with resiliency. What is your thought about that? What was it in you that gave you that resilience? Or what do you think that makeup is that builds resilience?
I call it pebbles. The pebbles that we put in the pockets of these kids from hard places and these that have experienced trauma are what can really build the foundation of
Uh
structure that
huh.
we can be resilient. If I have a firm foundation, and I got that, a lot of that through church, not because of what people told me in faith, but the way I felt when I showed up at the door. I always talk about smiles, seeing smiles, and how I felt with the smiles, no matter what I looked like, no matter what they'd heard about me. That was a pebble that gave me that foundation to do it. And even as a foster parent, which was very, very hard, we worked reintegration for a young girl who's now been adopted, and it was very hard. It was a different perspective to see her trauma and then having my own, and being able to have that foundation of understanding, but also the resources of other people to talk to was essential in that time. That's the other part of resilience, is people that you can talk to and trust.
But for people who may be watching this, who are feeling a lack of hope with all the things going on in the world, can you share one or two of the things that you think people can really hang on to and remember during this time?
Yeah, understanding that hope is the belief in something greater. It's a mindset. It doesn't mean it's easy in the moment, but grasping that concept that it can and it will get better. And so there's a lot of different ways. This book is actually centered around people who may struggle with anxiety, tension, just a lot of stress. It's very universal in that. And so
Yes.
creating a life that you love is a chapter where I talk about setting some boundaries, how I learned I needed to set some boundaries. And I talk about saying no as often as I say yes, because we can tend to be very giving people where we lose sight of what we're there for, or we
Right.
become overwhelmed. And then, as I think so, all of these are important, of course, but I do have the section about finding freedom from forgiveness as the very last section for a reason, because
Mm,
it is the most challenging. And there's some other things that we have to really focus on to have the ability to really free ourselves to the degree of freedom we deserve from the hardships that we carry. And
yeah.
so making sure you give yourself some grace in these challenges and learn the skills as you go to really relieve yourself of that forgiveness that you desire.
Oh, forgiveness is so powerful. It's just
Mhm.
so powerful. And we really can't get to hope without it, can we? Because we stay stuck. We stay stuck in our
Mhm.
pain, we stay stuck in our sorrow, and then forgiveness just frees us. It completely frees us.
We can get lost in the moment and think that we have nowhere to go from here, or that it's powerless.
Right.
And in the sense of forgiveness, does not mean we can't set boundaries, and it doesn't mean somebody else has to apologize either. Forgiveness is for ourselves. It's a freedom for ourselves to continue facing challenges, not that it's going to be this unrealistic um, freedom from challenges, but instead it's the ability to face them. And it's not going to be the other thing I was going to mention there is sometimes we get what we call close sighted or wanting to have A or B, good or bad. And we remember that we can be in a place of both. I can be sad about what's happened to me and free from the grief of it, free from the restraints of it in my life. I can be an advocate for child welfare and yet still be free to work with people who have addiction and love them unconditionally. You can do both at the same time.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell us about your family now. So you're married and
Yes, I've been married for 17 years now, and we have
congratulations.
yes, thank you. We always say we l- like each other most of the time, but we love each other all the time. And he worked in
I love
law
that.
enforcement for a long time. So we have one fully biological son who is 12. We have a lot of ADHD in our family. And so we have learned a lot of grace in that imperfect parenting is okay. And we deserve that grace and support as well. And then we have a 6-year-old who came to us through our heart. We fostered and adopted her. And then we actually have a 25-year-old who calls us mom and dad, who came to live with us when he was 18. And so he
Wow.
lives on his own now, but yeah. And lots of
Wow.
dogs and cats.
Yes. And outside of your role as a clinician, I know you're a speaker and you do a lot of work with teenagers. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how people can get in touch with you if they want to hear from you or have you come minister in their setting?
Yeah, thank you. It is my passion and my love to bring hope to people, to help them revive with their energy for whatever they're doing so they can keep doing it. Because I've been in those shoes and I've received from those shoes. And so I really want people to feel how valuable that is in the day-to-day life. I love being able to share hope from my story to the people doing the hard work every day, whether that's through ministry, speaking, training, counseling, or therapy, which is why I did my clinic. And so I share my information on my website. It's Amber Jewell, and Jewell has two L's. And then I love just word of mouth, being able to get the information out. You can also look at my book, and I'm on Facebook, social media, emails, and my clinic. So,
How do you have time? Wow. Wow. Okay, the last thing I really want to ask you is what leave us with some of your hopes right now. What are you hoping for right now? So you have kids in all stages of life. You're busy, you're a career woman, you're an author, you're going out and speaking. Since there's so many challenges in our world today, but here you are, just radiant with hope. What are you hoping for, Amber Jewell?
well, I hope that my favorite teams would actually win. Oh, no,
Oh,
I guess in a deeper meaning. So I hope that we all laugh a little bit like we just did because it
oh,
feels so good. And there is such joy in the darkness that I want us to be able to see the light instead of sit in the darkness. And I do that
wow.
through my speaking. I had a period of my life that I could not speak. As a foster kid, that was metaphorical, but as a young adult, when I had my surgery, I literally had to learn to talk again. And it's such a gift to be able to share my words with others to revive the hope that they can do. And if I could do that every day, I am doing exactly what God has put on my heart to do.
You're awesome. You're so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And the book is Finding Hope. And I truly hope everyone who watches this will buy it and give lots and lots away. And another thing I love about the book is it's easy to carry. I had it in my purse, and I can just turn flip it open and look at a section and really reflect on all the inspiration you put in there. So thank you so much for everything you do. I hope you'll write some more books, and we're just very blessed and grateful to have you as part of the Second Mothers community. So, and thanks for taking time while you're at work to record this.
Yes. Same for me. Thank you.
Thank you.